We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It's Saturday. We're into the weekend, but all kinds of shit happening. And I've got some good news for you. To steal a line from The Rock, finally, Old Soul has returned to the building. Now, Old Soul is here. Thank you for coming back. I was telling you before, with all the fan mail you get on my show, I'm starting to get a little bit of a complex here. You get more fan mail than I do. You deserve
It,
it, but it's
it's
still
weird. It's kind of weird, but I like it and I'm flattered. And I like the community that you have here too. I don't know how it is on TikTok because I'm not on TikTok, but in the comment section, I've only seen like one person that was kind of like tripping. But
yeah.
everybody else can kind of like say their piece, even if they're not on the same page, it's respectful. And you don't always get that in a lot of other people's comment sections. So that
My
says
t-
more about you than anything.
well, my TikTok is pretty tame too, and it's only because I block most Trumpers. As soon as I see them, I just cut them out because I know they're a threat to my platform just by virtue of ganging up and trying to take down videos and try to get you banned. I've never really been at risk of that, only because
Yeah.
I've been very meticulous about blocking them. My thought is if they can't see me, I can't piss them off and they can't try to take me down. And so far, it's worked. It's worked. Um, let's remind people about you because you're a younger woman. You're not a boomer. You're more. Would you call yourself a millennial? Are you in that range? I've got a son
Um,
that's 36 who's a millennial, and you're a bit older than he is. So I don't know if you'd still be a millennial or a very young Gen X.
I always thought Gen X, but
Okay.
I grew up in that whole like Y2K era. So I
Yeah.
didn't grow up with technology, but like in my early 20s is when it really started like becoming
Okay.
a yeah.
Okay. Well, we've been watching. Well, the other thing I want to talk about is the volunteer work you do. You do a lot of good work, and I think people heard about it last time, and that's part of the reason why people are so impressed with you. You're young, you're articulate, and you're compassionate to the point where you're actually doing something. A lot of people say, "Oh, we should do this or we should do that," but you, old soul, are actually doing it. So tell us about the things you do, and we'll give the addresses and such and web addresses where people can also help you.
Yeah, I help women primarily in red states because they have those strict abortion bans. I
Right.
wrote an email, you haven't read it yet, but what I'm starting to learn and what a lot of the women are learning there is exceptions to the exception. So the exception could be for the life of the mother. But it doesn't mean like if the mother gets a cancer diagnosis and she can't carry a baby to term, that is not included. She has to be like almost dying in order
Right.
for them to do that exception. And the insurance companies are telling the doctors and the hospitals, don't do it because you open yourself up to liability. So it's pretty sad to watch women and girls have to flee. And then I also learned too, I was always thinking about it from a woman's perspective, but I'm learning now what it is for a man to go through that or to watch his wife go through that or watch his daughter go through that and how that makes them feel. It's really sad. Like it's hard for me. I get like emotional now, just
Right.
like hearing them talk about it. But I know that it's easier to listen than it is to live it. So if I know that it's harder for them, I can take the information in, but it's still at the end of the day it affects me because I don't think anybody should go through what a lot of these women are going through.
So
I've
basically,
heard.
yeah, basically what's happening, people who are in a position where they need an abortion and they live in Texas or Florida or Alabama or someplace like that, and they can't get it. And they could
Yeah.
be somebody that doesn't have a lot of money and
Hmm.
can't travel 2 states away to get the procedure done. So without the money and without the resources, they end up having to have a child and risk their lives or whatever. And that's where you kind of come in and help. You have people staying with you a lot
Yeah.
that need help, and that's commendable. I mean, that's kind of gutsy, just having people come in and stay with you.
Yeah, resources are always stretched thin.
Yeah.
So instead of paying for travel expenses, food expenses, and a hotel or Airbnb. It's like, okay, just pay for the travel expenses. I'll open my home to them. And of course, I have plenty of food. I'll feed them, they'll eat, and all that other kind of stuff. So it kind of helps the resources reach more people when you can open your home to someone.
Now, you said the magic word. You have plenty of good food, and I'm probably going to be in Vegas in late December,
Yeah.
so I may check you out because when we were in Savannah, we went to a bunch of restaurants and we ate way more than we should. But we're old, and our social life is about going to restaurants. But all seriousness, it's very commendable that you do this because it takes a lot of your time and effort, and you're bringing people into your house that you don't know, so you don't know what you're dealing with, but your compassion is strong enough that you want to help regardless, and that's impressive.
Well, thank you. My grandmother was like that. Every
Really.
time we looked up, it was like someone, they were in between homes, or if they needed something, that she would sleep on the sofa and give them her room, especially if it was like a mother and her children, that type of thing. Or if they just needed something to eat, they just come over, she fixed them a plate, or she would be like, oh, I grabbed the extra pack of chicken here, take this with you, that type of stuff. And she would always just say, it takes like a whole village to be a community to help each other. You can't just everybody look out for themselves. It doesn't work like that, but I think a lot of people see it that way. But I was told something completely different. And I can understand safety reasons and stuff, but these are just like vulnerable women who come here. So,
Let,
I
let,
don't really.
let me ask you a stupid question, and it's maybe a pointless question, but when you said what you said about your grandmother,
Yeah.
and I grew up as a white kid, now I'm an old white guy. That kind of attitude and that kind of hospitality seems more prevalent in the black community than it is in the white community. People in the
Mhm.
white community would be more reluctant to do something like that. Do you believe that's true?
I'm not sure, but in my community, it wasn't like that. If someone needed something, we got together and we had it done, but we didn't have a lot, so we depended on each other. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right,
And then a lot of us were in the same situation. Like my mother was like on drugs, so my grandmother took us in. And I
right.
think I only had maybe one or two friends who lived with one or both of their parents. The rest of us lived with our grandparents because, crack epidemic and all that stuff. So all of
Right.
our parents got swept up into that. So if I
Wow.
had clothes and outgrew my clothes, I was the only girl. And it was like a girl across the street who needed clothes. My grandmother would just hem my stuff up, fix it really good, iron it, send it over there, and she would be wearing it. We just had to help each other out.
The thing about it is what you lived a tough life by other people's standards, but it seemed to serve you pretty well. You became the person you are because of the life you lived earlier. And
Yeah.
that's impressive.
Well, thank you.
I'm sucking up to old soul because she gets all the publicity on the Rational Boomer podcast. Let's talk about some politics. We were talking about it before we went on here.
Yeah.
And the big news, of course, and everybody's running around like chickens with their heads cut off because of the potential closing of the government. Now, a lot of
Mhm.
people think this is just a rerun of the raising of the debt limit. The debt limit was a much more serious situation because it would have affected the credit rating of the country and caused severe
Yeah.
damage. Now, if the country closes down, it's going to be a problem because hundreds of thousands of people won't be getting checks who work for the government and that sort of thing. So it's really kind of a scary situation from your standpoint where you're sitting. What are your thoughts about what's going on now? Because it doesn't seem like we're even close to getting this resolved.
I will say MAGA, or I call them like Earth One and Earth Two. There's two separate
Right,
Republicans. Like the MAGA Republicans are like Earth Two. The other ones are just Earth One. They're on two different planets, pretty much. And I don't think that they should be doing what they're doing is wrong. They're just doing a bidding for Trump. Like they're
right,
putting one man over the party, over the country, over everything. But I blame Kevin McCarthy for that. I
right.
really do, because he could have stopped this at any moment. The first time that they pulled this little stunt with the debt ceiling thing, he shouldn't have snuck and talked to Democrats. He should have did it in front of their faces. He
Right.
should have went over there, made a deal with the Democrats and said, I'm not going to play these games with you guys. If you want to, we will work together and get stuff done. And all of these little side projects that y'all want, you're not going to get it. The committees that you want to be on, you're not going to get it. If you want to vote me out, do what you got to do. But when he started letting them control the situation and the narrative, and if they're so disrespectful, they go on television and call them all kind of cowards and all that other stuff. He could have stopped this on day one if he would have just handled his business, but he didn't. So it's they push. The more you give, the more they take. And
Right.
he should have stopped this the first time that they tried to do it.
Well, Matt Gaetz was interviewed yesterday, and he
Yeah.
basically said something that I agree with, that amazed me, because I don't agree with Trumplefuck, certainly not Matt Gaetz. But he said if the government closes down,
Mhm.
the sole person responsible is Kevin McCarthy. Then I started thinking about it, and he's absolutely right. Because
Yep.
when he wanted to become Speaker of the House, he sold his soul
Yep.
to the MAGA or the Freedom Caucus and said, "Whatever you want, I'm happy to do it." Then, when he got under pressure with this debt ceiling thing, he went to Joe Biden and worked out a deal. He
Yeah.
worked out some kind of deal. And if he stuck by that deal, we wouldn't be in this position now, because he worked it out with Biden, comes back, and now we're here because MAGA wants something different. Now that whole deal he did with Biden is non-existent now.
Yeah.
Kevin McCarthy is a low down, dirty piece of shit deal breaker. He broke the deal with MAGA. He broke the deal with Biden. He's the one in the middle. As the middleman, as the Speaker of the House, he should be able to bring this together and negotiate it out so everybody's happy, but he can't. So, yeah, he's at fucking fault.
Yeah. Politics is pretty it's pretty difficult. I don't have the stomach for it, but Republicans, they tend to be pretty ruthless. They don't
Yeah.
care about their word at all. So I don't blame Kevin McCarthy for making those behind door deals with them. I would have done the same thing, and then I would have went back on my word, but I would have been ruthless about it. Like, yeah, I told you that, but that's not how it's going to work. And I would have did what I wanted to do, and then I would have just had to make them fall in line, kind of like that Mitch McConnell type of way. You have to be ruthless with them. If you show any kind of weakness or fear, they feed off of that. It's
Oh,
like
yeah.
blood in the water with sharks or something. So he could have made those deals and he could have just broke his word because they do
He,
that anyway.
he's a politician. That's their
Yeah,
job, is to
yeah.
lie and
Hmm.
do that. Now the interesting thing is that Matt Gaetz is now threatening to vacate Kevin McCarthy from the speakership. They were pretty mad after the debt ceiling. They didn't put up a vote of no confidence after that. It's
Yeah.
interesting. So now he's really threatening hard and putting these proposals in the wastebasket in the bathroom. It's kind of funny. It's like a setup. But uh, what do you think about the prospect of MAGA dumping Kevin McCarthy?
They're not going to do it. And I don't even know why Kevin McCarthy is allowing himself to get pushed around by Matt Gaetz. Out of all people, that's so weird to me. If they were going to do it, they would have did it the first time. And if they
Right.
want to do it now, I would just say go ahead and do it. Nobody else is going to take this position. Nobody else is going to get nominated. You just, if you're going to do it, just do it. I would just call his bluff. And the fact that he's not doing it and he's still trying to work with them and make concessions, that's not going to work. And I think that Democrats, they're not messaging it properly. They need to be saying, instead of the government shutdown, it needs to be Republican shutdowns. The Republicans, every little thing, put Republican in front of it. It's the Republican shutdown, not MAGA. This is the Republican shutdown. And they're not taking advantage of that at all,
No,
which is
I,
weird.
I saw somebody talking about this, and since the 90s, there's been 5 or 6 shutdowns.
Mhm.
Every one of them has been initiated by the Republican Party. The most interesting shutdown that I heard about was in late 19, that would be late, 2018 into 2019. Now, here's the interesting thing about that. The government was shut down for 35 days. This was while Donald Trump was president.
Oh,
But but
is
here's
that
what's
the border one?
no, it was something else. But it was in 2018, 2019, December into January, 35 days. But here's the interesting thing. Donald Trump was president.
Mhm.
The Republicans had the majority in the House and the Senate. They shut them
Yeah.
fucking selves down.
Yeah.
Why do you have to shut yourself down? You've got the power. Why not just do what you want to do? But it goes back to what I've talked about before. The Republicans have a much bigger problem than the Democrats because they can't agree on shit. Um,
Not only that, but they're selfish. They
yeah,
don't want to give anything. It's what I want. It's what's going to make me look good. Me, 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 me. And you
right.
have to compromise at some point because they only have a slim majority in the House. So what happens if you do agree on something? Now it has to go to the Senate, and if they don't like it, it's not going to go through. If it's a bunch of crap, Joe Biden isn't going to sign it. So at some point, you have to make some kind of compromise, but they're too selfish to do that.
Well, they're too
That's basically the role to them.
they're bullies and they want to push
Mhm.
their point across, and they're okay with the country being shut down. They live for that
Yeah.
chaos and that disruption. So that's what they really want. And why do they want that? They want that because if you notice, Donald Trump has been screaming. First, he said, impeach him, impeach him. And of course, they decide they're going to do this inquiry, even though they have no fucking evidence. It's funny,
Mhm.
they're sending subpoenas to Hunter Biden, Biden's brother. And somebody said, why haven't you sent a subpoena to Joe Biden? And they said, well, there's no evidence he was involved. Then what's the point? If you have no evidence that he was involved, how are you going to fucking impeach him? But they don't care. They're just about making noise.
Right. Not only that, I think that a lot of people they don't understand. It's not like Jared. I hate to keep drawing these comparisons because they're completely different. But with Jared, he wasn't like educated to do any of the things that he was doing.
No, he
Hunter
wasn't.
Biden, he went to Yale, he graduated, he's an attorney. He also went to Georgetown University. He's an educated man. But instead of climbing the ladder, he used his name and just got bumped ahead of the ladder. But so does Peter Ducey. Why is he a White House correspondent? Because his dad is on Fox News. When
Right.
you look at Tucker Carlson's son, he graduated making like 200,000 a year. So Hunter isn't doing anything that their children doesn't do. They're just blowing it out of proportion. And I hate that about what they're doing. It's like you're completely just dragging a man through the mud for I don't get it, but it's like whatever they can do to take the distraction from Donald Trump as if we could ignore what Donald Trump got going on. That's not
Right.
gonna make us not notice what he got going on over there,
Well,
please.
Donald Trump thinks that by shutting down the country, it's going to stop everything in as far as his trials and charges and all that stuff. And the surprise is it doesn't do that at all. A shutdown
Mm-mm.
will stop the investigations into Biden because it's Congress, but the
Yeah.
money has already been set aside for Jack Smith and whoever else is involved. It's not going to stop the trials at all. But
Not
the
only that, but they don't realize that people they do things because it's the right thing to do. And
right.
especially when you know that he is such a threat to the country, Jack Smith and his entire team, I bet you they would work for free. And then that still doesn't stop Fannie Mae. That's a state charge.
Right.
So it's like what he's doing does not help him, doesn't make him look better. I don't get the logic, but when you follow a madman, it's not supposed to make sense.
Well, there is no logic. It's about desperation. He's flailing, he's panicking, and he's trying to do anything. Impeach Joe Biden, maybe that helps. Shut down the country, maybe that helps. But the problem with Donald Trump is he's been nothing but a failure from the beginning. Uh, what I find interesting is that while he's coming up with these failing ideas, these ideas that are just stupid, that's not surprising with Donald Trump. What's surprising is allegedly intelligent people in Congress are going, yeah, whatever you want, Donnie, we'll fucking do it, even though it's going to fail. I mean, it's like his lawyers. He tells the lawyers what to do. The lawyers know better than that, but they still do it.
Donald Trump is at his weakest right now. He's the most
Oh yeah.
vulnerable right now. And the Republicans, they're like a bunch of vultures. I don't understand why they're not jumping on him right now when he's down. Like when he was president, I can get it. When he, I can get it. But the prime opportunity was January 6th. They should have band together. He's a threat to the country. He's a traitor. They should have handled it then. They didn't. Okay. But now he's vulnerable again. You're supposed to pounce right now. You don't want to build your enemy up. He's tearing your party down. So get him while he's down. It's like they want to claim like they're tough and they're ruthless, but they're not, because they're not taking advantage of his weakness and his vulnerability. They're not doing it, which
Well,
is
you
that's
know,
actually surprising to me.
yeah, you can blame for that too. I mean, after the inauguration with Joe Biden, I thought that they would kick Donald Trump to the curb and go on to
Yeah.
better and bigger things. But we know what Kevin McCarthy did. He flew down to Mar-a-Lago, hugged Donnie, and brought him back into the fold. And ever since that time, the Republicans, including MAGA, have just done anything he said. I don't know if it's out of fear or just being brainwashed or just stupidity. I don't know what it is. But once
I think
again,
it's a
Kevin McCarthy.
combination.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is.
I don't get anybody around him. Even Rudy Giuliani, as disgusting as he is, he doesn't have any morals. He doesn't really care. I would go talk to Trump if I was him. I would be wearing a wire. I'd be turning state's evidence. You know what I mean? Like
Uh,
his secretary, whatever the girl's name is, she was taking pictures of the boxes, sending it to the FBI. I
right.
don't understand why they didn't put themselves in a position to where they can take him out and also avoid going to prison. I
Well,
don't like they seem ruthless, but they're kind of dumb in their
there,
ruthlessness.
this reference won't resonate with you because you're too young, but I call them the Apple Dumpling Gang. It's an old movie about a gang of old West guys that do nothing but fuck up every time they do something. You brought up Rudy Giuliani though, and I was talking about that on TikTok a little bit yesterday. And of course, you heard that Cassidy Hutchinson accused him of groping her.
Yeah.
Now, it was funny because when he was confronted with that on Newsmax, he melted down. It's baseless. It never happened. And then he said something. He said, "Do I look like the kind of guy that would grope somebody?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah, actually you do." I mean, I remember the movie when you were with that young girl and you were laying on the bed and you had your hands down your pants. Don't know what you're doing, but Rudy, you're a fucking goofy, creepy motherfucker.
The saddest thing about that whole situation, I don't know any person that was surprised to hear what she said.
No, no,
Nobody was.
and I said the bottom line is here we've got a choice. Do we believe Rudy Giuliani, who has done nothing but lie the last 4 years and has been corrupt and attacked these poor election workers in Georgia's and made their life hell? Or do we believe the one person in the White House early on, a lower level person, but the only person to step up and tell the fucking truth? Because of what she did, she wasn't caught up in the mess like Rudy Giuliani. Now she's kind of a hero. So do I believe Cassidy Hutchinson or Rudy Giuliani? That's not a hard choice.
It's not. And I'm pretty sure that she's not the only person. We already
No.
have depositions from the other women, but I'm even thinking before that, you know, he used to have money. He used to have power and influence.
Right.
So I know that there was some NDAs going on, there was some payoffs going on. This
Yeah.
is just what we know about. And I think he's just the most disgusting person. Like looking at his pictures, like make my skin crawl. I don't get that. Ugh.
Well, he said there was a bunch of people around. It was in a tent during a rally or something like that. There was 100 people around. How could I do that? Well, Rudy, you're also an alcoholic and you're drunk all the time. And you and I both know that when people are drunk, they do shit that's ill advised, whether
Yeah.
there's people around or not. And then, secondly, as you said, he's no doubt done it before because he's narcissistic, he's arrogant, he's had a lot of power. Like you say, he's probably done it a number of times before, but paid somebody off or threatened them somehow not to speak up. But I bet you right now, we hear of a few other women that say, yeah, he groped me too, because he's that fucking guy.
I mean, look who Trump surrounds himself with. He
Yeah.
had a whole Access Hollywood tape. I
Yeah.
believe it was 26 women that came out and spoke against Trump.
Right.
Um, you don't surround yourself with people like that if you're not that type of person. So I'm not surprised at all that Rudy is like that, that Trump is like that. And they openly brag about it. And I don't think him saying, like, doing it in public, of course you do it in public. You don't really care.
Well, that seems to be the thing to do for Republicans because we've
Yeah.
got another groper in our midst, Lauren Boebert.
Oh, gosh.
Miss Religious goes to a theater and vapes and causes disruption, and there were complaints, and she was walked out. And then later we find out the two of these clowns were groping each other. We're finding out that might have broken a law in Colorado, and she may have to deal with going to trial for that. I don't know. But the interesting thing about it is first she denied it. Then when the video surfaced, she goes, "Oh, well, I'm sorry, this is this. I was really upset about my divorce." I don't know if you've ever been divorced. I haven't been divorced,
Had
but
enough breakups. I don't do that.
after you break up, you go, you know what I really need to do? I need to fondle some guy in a public place. That's really going to make me feel better. But it was interesting what Lauren Boebert said. She was trying to protect the guy she was with, and she says he's just a private citizen. I hope you respect his privacy. And I said, you mean a private citizen like Hunter Biden or Hillary Clinton or some of these other people that are else? It's just hypocritical, and they will say anything no matter how stupid it sounds.
No, but she tried to throw him under the bus in one sentence and then defend him in the next because she's like, "Oh yeah, I'll know to check party affiliation next time," as if him being a Democrat controlled her actions. And then she turns around in the next sentence and say, "Oh, but he's a private citizen."
Right,
Just like,
right.
you know what I mean? Like you want to make him seem like a bad guy because he's a Democrat and somehow that influenced your behavior, but then, leave him alone. He's a private citizen. I think she's just talking and just saying words and hoping that she can just move past this incident. I think Lauren Boebert is like one of the trashiest people in Congress. I really do. And
There's
her
no
complaining
question.
about the dress code, I think she might be a size 6, and I only see her wearing size 4s.
Yep,
So I
yep.
don't think she should be having any kind of conversation on anybody's dress code. I don't
Yeah.
like her.
No, I don't like her either. She's as dumb as she is corrupt.
Mm.
And the interesting thing is she also said, well, it was just a first date because I think she was embarrassed by the fact that it was exposed that he was a Democrat. Well, we all knew he was a Democrat before she was exposed here. That was already reported. And then it turns out it wasn't a first date, that she had been dating him for several months. And the way we got that information was from drag queens that worked
Yeah.
for the guy's club that she was dating. How beautiful is that?
They don't care about any of the stuff that they say. Lauren
No,
Boebert doesn't care about children. She didn't even protect her own son when he was getting attacked by his father, you know?
right, right.
So she doesn't care about doing that in a theater with families and children. She doesn't care. She just says whatever it is that she has to say to get her little clicks and views. I hope that we don't have to deal with her at the end of her term. I really
No,
do.
no, I don't think we will. And she said something recently on an interview, I think earlier in the week, and she says, well, people know I'm kind of bubbly and kind of eccentric. It's not surprising. Okay, you sing and dance with the show and you vape. Okay, that might be a little eccentric. That might be a little
Right.
bubbly. But still, I go back to the groping. That really doesn't fit the mold of what she's trying to depict here.
Yeah, I'm in Vegas and we have our casinos, they don't allow you to smoke in casinos anymore. They learned a lot about secondhand smoke and all that
Right.
stuff. I don't know anybody who's sitting in a theater that's vaping. Like
No.
I don't know anybody that does that. If we're not doing it in a casino and it's not a designated area, you're not like in a confined space with other people having total disregard for how they feel about the situation. It's all about me, me, me. And I absolutely believe she said, "Who do you think I am?" She can deny that, but I know I'd like she had to have said that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm surprised they didn't recognize who she was, or maybe they did and they just didn't give a shit. I have to go full disclosure here. When I think about PDAs, public displays of affection in a
Yeah.
theater, I have to admit that I probably did that too. Of course, I was in ninth or 10th grade at the time, and I was
Mm.
at a movie sitting in the back of the place. But
You
Jesus
weren't a
Christ,
public figure either.
I wasn't a public figure. I wasn't 36. I was just a dumb teenage kid. But that's the funny thing about the Republicans. Everything they claim other people are doing are the things they're doing themselves. I mean, if you would have had a Democrat do what she did, she would be calling them groomers and pedophiles and all this shit because there were kids around there. But after something like this, she goes, "Oh, whoops, I'm sorry," and we're supposed to just accept that. She's getting pounded in the media about this, and to be honest with you, she's pretty insignificant with regards to all the other shit that's going on. She's a
Yeah.
fucking gnat on a pile of shit that is the Republican Party.
That's a good description of it.
I just came up with it, but it fits. It fits. It's the thing with this closure is troubling because it's going to cause some problems for a lot of people. Now, you
Yeah.
don't work for the government, do you?
No, I work in healthcare, but I don't have a government contract, thank
Right.
God.
And I don't work for government. I did at one time, but I don't now. And
Mm.
it's not going to affect me, but I still worry about a lot of people I know that work in government or might be affected by a shutdown. And
Yeah.
when I look at Matt Gaetz and Paul Gosar and all these Freedom Caucus people, it's really disturbing to understand that they don't care how it affects people as long as they feel like it benefits them, that
Yeah.
they're going to get what they want. They will sacrifice anybody and anything just to get what they want. And it never usually works, but that's quite the opposite of what they're supposed to do in their job descriptions. They're supposedly working for us and serving us, but it seems like we have virtually very few Republican politicians and some Democratic politicians that seem to give a fuck about that.
Yeah, they don't understand representation
No,
at all. I think that they just see what they feel is right or what they feel, and they want us to live by those standards, and they don't even have those standards for themselves. They just don't. I think like when we have issues in this country that's, everybody is like 79, 80% in agreement on those issues, and
right.
they go and do the opposite. It's just proof that they don't want to represent. They just want to enforce their will onto everyone else. And the control factor of the shutdown, I think, has a lot to do with it.
Yeah,
It's getting Matt Gaetz a lot of attention, a lot of interviews. Everyone's talking about it. His name is everywhere. And I think he's thriving off of that the same way that Tuberville thrived off of those military promotions that he was holding up. Because he didn't care about the issue, because if he did, he wouldn't say, okay, yeah, well, here's a way around it. Everybody vote on it.
right,
So it
right.
wasn't about the issue, it's about the attention. And I think right now they're feeding off of the attention, especially Matt Gaetz, Margie Taylor Greene. They're all like feeding off of that attention.
Well, Matt Gaetz wants the attention because we
Mm.
understand now that he may be running for governor. According to the laws of Florida, uh, Ron DeSantis
Florida better
can't run
not.
again.
They better not. They're gonna
Yeah.
go from like straight out of boiling water and hop into the frying pan with that one. He's such
Yeah.
a douchebag.
Yeah. He's a little bit of a douchebag. So if you were in some club someplace and Matt Gates with his elongated forehead and said, "Hey, old soul, you want to dance?" I'm guessing you might shun him.
I think Sean would be the nicest thing that I can do to Matt Gates. I hope I don't have any kind of drink in my hand or anything like
Or
that
a
because it would just,
weapon.
yeah, it'd just slip out.
Right, right. Well, one of the things I'm thinking though, with all this stuff and everything hanging precariously, like the shutdown of the government, I have a feeling that we might become at a kind of pivotal point because, as you've said, we want the Republicans to at some point realize they can walk away from the Freedom Caucus or MAGA, and that they have to. And I think
Yeah.
this one situation might be it. Because there's a lot of people saying it's definitely going to be shut down. We're definitely going to have a shutdown. And I'm not saying that. I could be wrong. But the Republicans know how damaging it is going to be to them. The
Hmm.
Freedom Caucus is only like 35 people out of 218. The Democrats work a deal with the Republicans, which they aren't talking about now. The Democrats are doing the right thing and basically saying, even Joe Biden saying, well, good luck with that, motherfuckers. You're going to be in
Yeah.
trouble. I don't want the Democrats to say, I don't care if it gets shut down because the Republicans will get hurt by it because there's a lot of other people that will be getting hurt by it. So they should do everything they can to make sure it doesn't. But when this happens and Kevin McCarthy ultimately caves, because he
Hmm.
will cave like he did with the debt ceiling. And when the Freedom Caucus doesn't kick Kevin McCarthy out of the speakership, that exposes MAGA for the weakness they have in the House. And I have a feeling that might be the turning point or the pivotal point where the other Republicans say, all right, fuck you. You're losers. Go away. They should have done this 2 years ago, but maybe I'm too hopeful, but maybe I'm too positive. That's what people always say to me. You give me hope. I'm always finding the sunshine in the day, but I'm hoping that this is the point where MAGA pretty much loses everything and they become less important in our day-to-day shit.
It will if Kevin McCarthy has more brain cells in his mind than I think he does. It will. But then again, it didn't the first time. They're not known for learning lessons and not having to repeat the same thing over and over again.
Right.
They don't really learn from mistakes. They just make mistakes, mistakes, mistakes.
Right.
If he would have learned anything from the first time, this wouldn't be going on right now because he would already know what's up, but he
Right.
doesn't. So
Well, I have a feeling Joe Biden, as much as he seems old and friendly and nice, um, he is certainly fairly shrewd when it comes to the business of Congress.
yeah.
I hope against hope that he doesn't trust McCarthy again. It's one thing to get
Um,
burnt by a guy, but have it done twice. Well, that's your fucking fault.
yeah, I don't think he will. And plus, Biden has a pretty young team around him. Like they're all fairly young. They're all smart. Pete Buttigieg, I think, is like one of the smartest people I know.
Yeah.
But and yet, so the trolling that he's doing right now, I think that's perfect. He
Yeah.
should be trolling them. He should be getting his narrative out there, especially on social media. So I don't think that he'll let Kevin McCarthy burn him again. I do think it's an opportunity for the Democrats in the House to come out and say, you know what, we have to be the adults in the room again. We have to do this. We have to do that. I think they should just grasp that narrative that they can't do anything without us. We can't make any progress if it wasn't for us. I think they should grab a hold of that narrative. And I
Right.
think they should hold it over Kevin McCarthy's head.
And I don't
He's
really
going to work with you anyway.
right. I don't think that McCarthy really burned Biden. Um,
Mm.
because Biden got what he wanted. He got the debt
Yeah.
ceiling raised. And he probably knew, as well as all the other Democrats knew, that Kevin McCarthy's a weak ass bitch and he's lying and that they would be going through this again now. I'm sure
Yeah.
they knew that. But if Biden's smart, when he comes to Biden, He's going to say, look, you fucked us last time. Now this is going to get harder. Now there's going to be no loop. We're going to
Yeah,
fucking take it to you and you're going to do it our way or shut the fuck up.
yeah. I think that Biden will. I think he plays that very sweet guy. Oh, grandpa, he's so nice in public, which I think he is a good guy. But I've heard behind the scenes he's a fan of the F word. So
Oh, nice. I like him already. I like him more. I mean, because that's what I do on the Rational Boomer podcast. I play this doddering old, friendly, sweet old guy. But in real life, I'm an asshole.
you're
Some
not.
people
You're just very so my grandmother would say you're very blunt.
I am very blunt. And you know what? When people are blunt to me, I appreciate it
Mhm.
because I can read people pretty well. But if you're just blunt, I don't have to waste my time figuring out what you really meant. It's not even, but people don't like blunt. People
I
definitely
do.
don't like blunt.
If there's someone who's blunt, I will never have to worry about where I stand with that person because I'm gonna know it.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
they're gonna say it, you know what I mean? So that's refreshing.
Well,
But I don't think everyone's skin is as thick as other people's skin is either.
true, true. Well, I tell you what, let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Yeah.
We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Of course, Old Soul is with us, much anticipated. Always a great joy to have her on the show because she's smarter than me. And it's always better when I have smarter people than me. Makes the show that much better. Um,
I
in the
think Ed
break,
is smarter than me.
I don't know. I know Ned a long time. He's 10 years older than I am, so he's lost a step or two. But no, he's a smart guy. But he lives in Tennessee. So what's that tell you? Um, but you were talking about Tucker Carlson while we were in the break, and you brought something up that was interesting. Tell us about that again.
He has a new show, so he's leaving from Twitter, X, whatever it's called, and he has a show that's going to be in Russia now. Um, when he was on Fox, I always saw the racism, and then it went from a combat just from racist to racist mixed in with Russian propaganda.
Right.
It's to me, it's alarming. And then what's even more alarming is I saw a video of Trump this morning saying one of the things that's they're trying to trick us to think that Russia is so dangerous to America. So I don't think that it's a coincidence that Trump made that video and that Tucker Carlson's show is now being on Russia television. And then when you combine that to what a lot of the MAGA Republicans are saying, it's a lot of Russia propaganda as well. And so I'm just kind of seeing how rooted that is into America right now because they're trying to make it seem like Russia is really not that bad. Putin is not a threat to us.
Oh yeah.
And they're trying to make Ukraine seem so awful. And I'm wondering how many people are paying attention to that because that is the scariest thing that I've seen in a while. That's scares me more than anything right now.
Now, when you say Tucker Carlson is doing a show in Russia, are you talking
Mm-hmm.
about him being on that network RT, which is a Republican, or not well, that's a Freudian slip, a Russian network? Because we do get that here sometimes, but you're probably right that it can only air in Russia
Yeah.
because he'll get his ass sued by Fox News if he does it here. They might
He's
even sue
filming
him for because of that.
Yeah, he's filming it here from my understanding. He's filming it here, but they're broadcasting it and playing it in Russia. I saw a video clip of it earlier, and when we get off of the live, I'll send it to you.
Okay.
But it's all in Russia, and it's clips of him saying Russia, Russia, like all his clips, he's saying Russia in these clips, and it's
Wow.
going to be playing in Russia, not in
Wow.
America. He's filming it here, but it's playing in Russia. And so when they talk about this whole two-tier justice system, Biden's going after his political enemies, the fact that Trump is allowed to say that and Tucker Carlson is allowed to do that kills that whole argument.
It
And I don't
does.
understand why people are not talking about that. That's pretty scary.
Well, one of the problems we have in this country, there's so many bullshit scandals and problems going on. It's hard to keep track of all of them and stay on top of all of them. But, Tucker Carlson has been on Twitter. He's been doing his show on Twitter. He's been getting away with that, although he's been sued. And immediately when he went on the show, he got big ratings, and that has dropped off by about 70 or 80%. And as I've said to you off the air, and I've said here before, uh, Tucker Carlson was the most powerful uh, cable guy, alleged news guy. He wasn't a news guy, but he was the most powerful, highest rated in the country. And from there, he went to doing a show on Twitter, which I believe is the it's basically the lemonade stand of fucking media, because nobody's watching Twitter to watch Tucker Carlson. But I have a
Lemonade
feel
without the sugar.
lemonade without the sugar, yeah. Um, but one of the last shows I heard about he did on Twitter was he had this guy who's known to be a con man. He's probably 65 years old, and he looks like he's, as my mom used to say, he looks like he's been ridden hard and put away wet. He's got some issues. But the whole story was that this guy was saying that he knew Barack Obama in the day and had sex with him and smoked crack with him. That's what Tucker Carlson is talking about. So I'm guessing on the shows in Russia, he's going to probably have Lyndon Baines Johnson, illegitimate daughter who happens to be a drag queen on that fucking show. That's about the kind of things you're going to see with Tucker Carlson. He was a danger to this country, but he's been kind
Yeah.
of eliminated in this country of being a factor. It happened quickly.
As of right now,
Yeah,
he's definitely a threat once he's broadcasting shows in Russia. Putin is more calculating than Donald Trump is.
yeah,
So I do think that it will be political. I think it'll be similar to Fox News, but ramped up a bit in Russia. I think that he needs to keep the Russian people um, thinking that the war in Ukraine is something other than what it is. And I think he's going to use Tucker Carlson to do that. Um, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of these right-wing outlets aired some of that stuff as well, and interjecting that into the
yeah.
American public, especially the right now when they're so amped up, and it's very dangerous. It's very dangerous. And I
Another
don't
thing.
even know how he's allowed to do that.
No, I don't either. But there might be another thing to consider. Since he left Fox News and went on Twitter, he's not making the money he used to make.
Yeah,
And maybe he's not even thinking about having an impact on this country. Russia loves Tucker Carlson and
they do.
Donald Trump. So maybe it's just the fact that he can go over to Russia and get a big audience and make a big paycheck again. That may be the main reason, because he's got to make money and he can't do it here.
And feel relevant.
Yeah,
Even this last interview he did with the Obama crack scandal, I guess is what you would
right,
call it.
right.
Even like Charlie Kirk and hard right people were making fun of him for that, you
Yeah,
know? So I do think that he'll be relevant in Russia. And I think that's what he's seeking because he has plenty of money right now. That's not what it's about. I think it's the relevancy that he's searching for.
yeah. It's all about ego, and that seems to be
Yeah.
the case with all Republicans. I'm the best. I'm the most popular. Donald Trump is all about ratings. And we heard about his last rally in Iowa. He was in a place that held 3,000 people and barely 1,500 shows up. That's got to be a little disconcerting for Donald Trump. I mean, he
Yeah.
relies on this kind of support and the money from these people, and they're starting to dwindle.
Yeah, my little niece had more people than that at her soccer game.
Yeah,
It just,
exactly.
I was like, what's going on here? And the thing about it is, he is so he just has to give this narrative because he's like, oh yeah, there's double the people of what we expected. And he's pointing to the crowd. And I often wonder what the people in the crowd are thinking because you can look around and you can see, and this place isn't packed, but he's saying it and they're clapping and it's not true. So I always just wonder, like, what are they thinking in their heads when he's lying to them to their faces and insulting them too? He insults them the whole time. Oh,
Yeah.
thanks for you. You nominated me as president, and I lost all this money. Thank you guys. Like,
Yeah.
and
I'm a great guy,
talking like
and you should feel fortunate that I wasted my time with you
yeah,
paupers. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe Donnie should see if he could get your niece as a running mate because he could use a boost in audience. It's just
she
it.
wouldn't do it
No, I know she wouldn't. And even if she thought about it, you would stop that shit in a minute.
in a heartbeat.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding. But Donnie is. You can see that Donnie's kind of losing a little bit. Have you noticed that? Whenever I see him, you can see it in his face, kind of puffy and sweaty. His eyes are red. He starts
Yeah.
saying things out of context. They don't mean anything. He talked about how he beat Obama in 2006. I mean, he doesn't know where the fuck he is. But Joe Biden's the one that's got the problem. That's what I don't understand. You got to remember these people, you say that, he says, we got a big crowd, and they look around and go, no crowd. But these are the same people that say JFK Jr. and JFK Sr. are coming back to uh, team up with Donald Trump to save the country from the deep state. So God knows what the fuck they think.
Yeah, and you have to think about his father, Fred Trump. I believe when he passed away, he had Alzheimer's or dementia.
Right,
I read his niece's book,
right,
and she was saying how when his father, he didn't know reality and what was going on around him, and how Donald Trump just took complete advantage of that.
right.
Um, the only thing about Donald Trump is he doesn't have anyone around him and his family to take advantage of him. His wife doesn't go to court with him. His children doesn't go to court with him. Nobody other than I don't know how to explain
His
Don
staff.
Jr.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
Don
there's no one around Trump that he doesn't pay. So I think
Right.
he's very lonely, and you can see that when he makes video after video after video after video. There's no one there to talk to. So he starts talking in a camera because those are the only people that'll listen to him without him having to pay for it. I think
Yeah.
he's very lonely. I think he's very sad. And I think these indictments are really getting to him and it's starting to show and it's affecting his faculties, which he really didn't have that much to begin with.
No, no, he wasn't the brightest guy in the world. And that's what I've said to people. They keep saying he's going to be the nominee. What if he doesn't get convicted before the election? And in my mind, if you've got a guy that's 77, will be 78 in 2024, he's not in the best physical health. He's certainly not in the best mental health. And then you have all these crushing charges hanging over his head. He's got the lawsuit that will basically break him going on in New York. He's got Georgia, he's got DC, he's got Florida, and more coming. This has
Yeah.
got to have a serious effect on one's emotional state. And he was kind of fragile in the first place. This is going to break this guy. And
Yeah.
he's just going to either say, I'm too sick to run, or he's going to run and hide, or whatever he's going to do. But I just don't see how he can pull it together to actually run for president. Every bit of the money he has is going to pay legal fees, and he's got zero money to campaign.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
how do you even do it?
He won't be able to. Um, he's so thin-skinned and he takes everything so personally. I don't know if you remember, but during COVID, when there was like these jokes going on about him and how he can't drink a bottle of water, and his
Yeah,
first
he
big
was
rally
he
after
was
that,
doing this.
yeah, he talked the whole time about the bottle of water and walking down a ramp. It's just like he just needed to vent and get that out.
Right.
And when he's on trial and he's sitting in a courtroom, he is not going to be able to do that. And he doesn't have a wife to go home and vent to. He can't call his children and vent. He
No.
is going to have all of that bottled in. It's going to spill out into the public in a negative way, and he's going to be a very, very erratic. And I think that's going to be his downfall is his lack of control, how he takes everything so personally, and he is not going to be able to control that courtroom.
No, no, he's not. And that's the worst part. Control is the absolute thing he needs, and he's
Yeah.
losing control and he's losing his mind. I just want to point out at my advanced age, as a contrast to Donald Trump, I can lift a water bottle with one hand and hit my mouth the first time.
Not only that, but you keep your brain active. You read, you stay up on the news, you pay attention, you know what's going on. Donald Trump lives in a bubble. You know, when he shows up and he's booed or he's being flipped off or a lot of people doesn't show up, he is really like shocked and delusional. And then he has to like try to trick the audience to think that there's more people there than it is. And it's just like the reality hasn't hit in. Like I hear glimpses of it where he's like, well, they put me in an orange jumpsuit. What prison will I go to? But then he immediately switches back to whatever planet it is that he's living on. It's
Yeah,
pretty sad. If he wasn't such a wretched person, it would be sad because I know he has to be lonely. I haven't heard about Melania except for one time, and that's when someone thought that she was at his first arraignment, and she came out and was like, "Nope, that wasn't me." And
yeah,
then ever since then, we haven't heard from her. She, it's like how lonely and sad when no one wants to be around you. Granted, it's his own fault, unless he's paying them to be.
right.
That's just so sad to me. No one likes you. That's it's got to be so sad. It has to be so sad.
No one likes him, yet he thinks he's the most popular person in the world.
Yeah,
It's funny when you talk about doing the podcast and keeping up with things over and above all the other benefits doing the Rational Boomer podcast and the TikToks. As a retired guy, it is helpful to me to have something to focus on and keep my mind working and keep my mouth working. Because
mhm,
I got to tell you, if you just sit on the couch and vegetate, you can deteriorate pretty fucking quickly. I know I sat
yeah.
there for a while and I'm going, wow, I'm a fucking slug. I need to do something. So then I said, oh, I'm going to be on TikTok. And my family goes, oh, fuck, you're really going to do that? But, but it is helpful in that respect. I wanted to talk about something else about those fucking Democrats.
Ah,
We had news yesterday of a Democrat, and I'm sure the Republicans are loving it because I think we'll be hurt by this. But the fact of the matter is, most reasonable Democrats are just as angry about it as any Republican might be.
right.
But we've got this Senator Menendez from New Jersey, and we find out he's pretty corrupt. He and his wife, because his wife was indicted, he was indicted, and it was about taking bribes from Egyptian businessmen and him helping out those businessmen and the country of Egypt himself. Now, Mendez says, oh, it's all blown out of proportion. Nothing happened. It's all of fake news and all this stuff. Yet when they raided his house, they pulled out $100,000 in gold bars. I guess everybody in DC has $100,000 in gold bars in their house. Jesus Christ.
I'm from the hood. I don't know why him and his associates didn't have gloves on. That's so weird. I don't know why they're hiding evidence in their home.
It's about
Make
the
the
arrogance. Yeah.
Make the FBI do their job. You need to go find those gold bars because they ain't here. And I can
Yeah.
say that with confidence. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think he deserved to get caught because A, you shouldn't be taking bribes. And it was just the stupidity of it. And then he was already on trial before and he got off. He didn't get, a not guilty verdict. It was a hung jury. And then, I guess if you have enough money and prestige, you don't have to go through that again. It's like, oh, they couldn't figure it out. Go on about your
Right.
business. But it's like you were on trial. And through the grace of God, you got off. You got a second chance. And what do you do with that second chance? You turn around, you do the same thing all over again. That's privilege at its finest. And he deserves everything he has coming to him. And I think Democrats will hold him accountable, unlike Republicans. And it's a chance to say, hey, we hold our own accountable, just like we hold Donald Trump accountable. If Hunter Biden did something, he should go to jail. We're not
Yeah.
saying that they shouldn't, you know what I mean? So I think that's a chance to kind of make themselves look okay. But I don't think that anybody who's voting for Republicans right now care about the moral high road or anything like that.
I think when we're talking about politicians, we're talking about the epitome of arrogance. They've
Hmm.
gotten away with this so long that they
Yeah,
feel like they're entitled to do whatever they want. We heard it from Clarence Thomas. Now he's
yeah,
going to networking meetings with the Koch brothers. I mean, these people are just so corrupt. And Mendez, Robert Mendez, I think his name is, um, Menendez is what it is. And the, it seems like they're stupid because they do it right in front of everybody's face and they get caught every time. But I have
yeah,
to believe it's just the arrogance and that they've gotten away with it for so many years. They just get lazy or they get sloppy. I mean, what neighborhood you're from and the neighborhood I was born in, if you're going to grift somebody or steal something, you're going to cover your ass
yeah,
because you know that you're going to get somebody knocking on the door. So you better cover shit up. But these fuckers, they'll do anything and just stand there like, what are you doing? Why are you holding me accountable?
yeah. And I think that they're incapable of learning a lesson because like it's been a couple times where it's like I was speeding but the cop had somebody else pulled over, so it's like, ooh, okay, you know what I mean, and I slowed down. They don't
Uh,
do that. He got off the first time, and instead of saying, oh man, I almost got caught, I need to get my stuff together, he did it again. So it just kind of emboldens people when they don't face consequences for what they do, especially when you have money, you have resources, and you are privileged. It emboldens you when you feel like you're untouchable. And I
right.
think that it emboldened him when he got off the first time. Let's hope he doesn't get off this time because there's people he's supposed to be representing that he's not. So I think,
It's
he
not
should be in there
surprising.
for as long as he need to.
It's not surprising he's from New Jersey. There's a little corruption going on there. If you
Yeah.
remember Chris Christie,
Yeah.
so there's some shit going on there. But did you hear what he said? What his excuse was? Is why he's innocent. He says, "I'm a first generation Hispanic in America. They're coming after me. Please, motherfucker."
What does that have to do with anything?
That's the thing is, when we're talking about Donald Trump, we're talking about Rudy Giuliani, or now this Menendez guy.
Yeah.
They're caught so cold, so red-handed, they will say virtually anything. They're at a point
Yeah.
where they're just lost. They're not used to being held accountable, so they will throw as much shit against the wall as they can. Like I've said before, they're like monkeys throwing their own shit at the glass because they're just hoping anything. I mean, whenever you're in a situation, a tight situation, I always tell people that's the point when you should slow things down and
Yeah.
think. But mostly
Hmm.
what people do is they panic and they do everything and then they fuck themselves over. Um, they're saying that if he's convicted of his crimes, he could go to jail for 45 years and he's 69 years old. So this guy could be in prison for life.
Yeah, I think they lie, repeat the lie, repeat the lie, repeat, like, unless you catch them red-handed, they will continue to lie. They'll say it with conviction and with a straight face. You see the same thing with Lauren Boebert. Like, she would be lying to this day if that film didn't exist.
Oh, absolutely. And
Yeah,
blame somebody else for it. But when you talk about getting caught red-handed, when you raid somebody's house and there's $100,000 in gold bars and $480,000 in cash money just laying around, I don't know how much more red-handed you have to be.
I don't even know. I didn't even know, honestly, I did not know that gold bars was a thing. I didn't like I didn't know that they were still something that people had. And it's just maybe because I just haven't reached that level of resources, but I didn't even know that people still had gold bars. Just
I Yeah, I don't know if you're allowed to have that many gold bars. Uh,
yeah.
but
And then
but
what are you
he
gonna do with them? You can't go to the bank with your gold bars and say, "Hey, give me a cashier's check for that."
Yeah, I
It's
want to buy
so
a
it's
I need to buy a car. Here's a gold bar. How do you get change for that?
yeah.
There's no
I think
fucking.
the crimes now, they're not like all of the crimes are comical at this point. And
It
they're
really
so
is.
they're so bad. Like I miss Jimmy Kimmel and I miss all of the late night people because I'm thinking they would like, well, not them, but the writers would be having a field day with this story. And
Oh,
it's like I miss the writers right now. I really do.
or Lauren Boebert's thing. That would have been
Yeah.
hilarious. That would have been hilarious. It's just, yeah, that's the thing is my wife listens to a lot of those, like a lot of women do, men
Mhm.
too, I guess, listen to those murder shows, like
Yeah.
2020 or Dateline and all that stuff. We're in the car. She's got the podcast up and I'm listening because I'm with her. And every time you hear the story and then how they get caught, you go, how could they be that stupid? I mean, they
Yeah.
just took $1 million insurance policy out on their wife and they kill her 2 days later.
Right.
That's not a red flag. I mean, there isn't something there that's going to say, maybe we should check that out.
I told my daughter the other day, I said, I'm from an era where people used to try to get away with their crimes. Like
Yeah.
we tried to cover things up, we tried to hide things. I don't think that they do that. I don't know how you're a lazy criminal. To me, is I think it just comes down to laziness, like, or maybe he was cheap and didn't want to sublet another place to hide his stash in, or he didn't trust anyone else to keep it. I don't know how you got caught with everything in your home. To me, that's the craziest part. That's the craziest part. If I robbed a bank, I'm not hiding the money in my home. I don't
I,
know
t-
anybody that would.
I told my wife, I said, for as many murder shows as you listen to, you got to probably know how to murder somebody and get away with it. She just looks at me and go, yeah, probably. That makes me sleep better at night. I sleep with one eye open. But do you think, based on what we've seen with Donald Trump, people keep saying that Donald Trump, if he was an average guy, he'd already be in jail. And same with
Oh
Rudy
yeah.
Giuliani and all this stuff. Do you think
Mhm.
all of this has exposed our judicial system as being weaker than we thought? Because I think it has.
I think that it exposed it to some people,
Yeah.
but I've always known that
You
it's
have?
not fair. Yeah, I've always known that there's a two-tier justice system. It's just I've always seen it, I've always known it. I can see so we would know the difference between like a crack rock and powdered cocaine. Crack rock is what Black people, minorities did.
Right.
Powdered cocaine is what white people did. If
Right.
you get caught with powdered cocaine and you're white, you're going to get a slap on the wrist, you're going to do your community service, maybe a year in jail, and that's it. If you get caught with a crack rock and you're Black, oh no, you're going to prison for 10 years minimum.
Right.
So I've always known that. I've never known it not to be like that. It's just what it is. Crack is crack. But if you're white and you're having powder versus if you're Black and you have a rock, two completely different justice systems for the same drug.
Right. Well, I mean, that's the difference. As you and I sit here, you're a younger woman of color, and I'm an old white guy. Um, if I'm driving down the street and I get the cops behind me, I'm gonna go, fuck. But I'm not worried about getting um, ramrodded into something and maybe get tased and handcuffs. I mean, what are they going to do to an old guy? I might be going 5 miles, 10 miles over the speed limit. They give me a ticket. And I think about that when I see the police. Police don't even stop me because I'm an old guy driving an SUV. I don't
Yeah.
stand out at all. But I know some younger people of color that are just terrified. when it comes to the possibility of getting pulled over by the cops. Now, I
Mhm.
only know of that experience in one experience I had when I was young. I got in a little trouble. I mean, I was really young at the time, and I had my license taken away for a short period of time, like 30 days. And of course, I was young and stupid, had more testosterone than intellect, and I decided to drive anyway. And then all of a sudden, I was freaking out every time I saw a cop. I'd try to get away from them, just not be in their line of sight to give them any reason to pull me over. And that was
Yeah.
terrifying. And I realized that there's a lot of people of color that have that same feeling every fucking day, and that's appalling.
Yeah, we really do have a conversation with our children. When they talk about getting their permit and their license and they're all excited about it, it's a whole conversation. If you get pulled over, first thing you do is you roll down all of those windows. You put your hand on the steering wheel. If they ask for your insurance, it's okay, sir. May I reach into the glove compartment and get my insurance? Or may I reach into my purse and get my license? You don't just reach and grab and get
Yeah.
anything. You ask for every single move before you make it. You need to ask, and you need to ask respectfully. You don't say no. Like, we have a right to say, "Oh, can I search your car?" No, no, you don't say that. "Yes, sir. May I step out of the car while you search?" That's what you do, because if you don't, now they're calling the dogs out. They want to come sniff it's like a whole thing. Not only that, but I have nephews who one of them is a football player and the other one is like 6'2" for no reason. And my brother always tell them, no, you can't have more than one friend in a car. You can't do
Wow.
that while you're driving into a nice neighborhood. Like, there's certain things that you just can't do. Like, you're not able to do that. It'll be nice if you can, drive to school with, you know, your passenger friend and you have two friends in the back.
All right.
No, you have four Black kids in the car. Are you kidding me? No, you don't do that. You can have a passenger. You might be able to have, like, one of your white friends in the back or in the passenger seat, but you do not roll four deep Black men in the car. You do not do that. That's asking for trouble. Especially my brother, he lives in a nice neighborhood, like, so it's like when
What's
you
he
turn
doing there? Yeah.
yeah, you know what I mean? And it's scary to them if they see them, walk into the park or something. They know them now because they've been there for a while. But when they first moved in, it was just like, yeah, there's certain rules that you have to follow. You can't just move like a regular kid. You just can't do that. And his children, they had to adapt because he was in the military. So they grew up in other countries where it wasn't like that. But when you
Right.
come to America, this is what it is. And you have to follow these rules so that you can stay safe, so that we're not getting phone calls in the middle of the night.
I told my kids they don't have nearly the problems that kids of color did, but we lived in a suburb, but it was like a small town. And
Mm,
I said, "There's only so many cops in this town, and you're a kid, and they'll pull you over for nothing.
yeah.
They won't do it. They won't treat them as badly as a person of color because they happen to be white." I said, "Every time you see a cop in our town, you wave to that motherfucker. That way he knows who you are, what car you have, and that you belong in this town. It may not save you if you commit some kind of traffic offense, but it
Yeah.
will make them feel more comfortable with you knowing that you're part of the community." And that was the only thing I told them. And it was because of my checkered past driving in South Minneapolis. But now, somebody like yourself, you're a young woman of color, you're
Mhm.
intelligent, you're articulate. Um, do you have those same kind of fears driving? Is it more just for the men or the boys?
No, I think it's in general, but I also think that it depends on what I look like that day. So, like what you said with your children, you want to make the police officers feel comfortable.
Yeah,
When it comes to my daughter and my nieces and my nephews, you wanna make them feel like you're not a threat. So that's
right.
the difference. You don't wanna It's not about them feeling comfortable, because 'cause they're not gonna feel comfortable. You just want them to know that you're not a threat. So you have to be articulate, you have to be calm, you have to keep your hands visible so that they know you're not a threat. So that's the difference there. But I think with me, it really does just depend. Like, like if I just got up and I was just running to Walmart and I didn't do my hair, I'm just, regular, that's different than if I'm dressed up and I'm going to work, or I'm dressed up and I'm, going to the doctor or something. That's different. So for me, it just depends on what I feel like looking like that day, what the perception of me is going to be by police and outside world and that type of stuff.
What's ironic is you can get an old white woman, a Karen, sitting in her car, get pulled over and get incensed by it and saying, I have my rights, take me to fucking jail. And they still won't take her to jail. They'll just
Yeah.
send her off and just not want to deal with her shit. You know, it's funny when you said something about kids driving four deep, four
Yeah.
black kids in the car. It
Hmm.
reminded me when I was young. Of course, this was a different time. This was in the late 70s. But I remember being a teenager and just, like I say, having more testosterone than intelligence. And we get four or five guys in a car and we go down this strip where kids were walking up and down. And, you know, we were cool, as you can imagine. And we go up and down and we'd be looking for girls and trying to pick up girls. And and
Boomer.
we're so stupid we don't realize. First of all, you got to find a woman, a girl, dumb enough to get in a car with five guys. But even if they did want to get in the car, we had
Hmm.
five guys in the car. Where the fuck are they going to sit? We were just young and dumb fucking kids. But we never feared. You know, we had our run-ins with the police. We were fortunate because uh, my good friend's father was a sergeant in the local precinct. So every time we were out, he'd pull out his card and they go, is that your dad? And he goes, yeah. He goes, well, then just get the fuck home. They wouldn't mess with us. But it had to do with us being white and being connected. And it's absolutely ridiculous. You know, I think
But
that's,
you're seen as kids too.
yeah,
So when I look at my nephews and I see kids, they're boys, they're teenagers, you know. But the outside world doesn't see them as children. They see them as men. You know, you can be 12, 13 years old and they don't look at them as a kid. They look at them as like a man, you know. So you have to teach them that even though you're a kid and you do crazy kid stuff, that's not how the outside world sees you, so you have to move
right.
accordingly.
You know, it's funny. I was down in Savannah recently. We go down there a lot, and I love Savannah.
Mhm.
And one of the things I love about Savannah is the diversity. In fact, white people are in the minority. Uh, Black people are the majority. And everywhere I go, I'm just amazed because I live in a town in the state where they say Minnesota nice, and it's not that nice always. But I go to Savannah, Georgia, and I can have anybody walk up to me and be as friendly as can be. And I was joking with somebody where we lived. I said, I can have the most thuggish looking guy walking in front of me and and have them hold the door and go ahead, sir. And I go, wow. I would have been scared to death of you in back home in Minnesota, but everyone is so fucking nice and so friendly and so welcoming. I really enjoy being there because it's such a everybody's just nice to each other and it's a nice vibe, if you will.
Hospitality.
Hospitality. Maybe it's a southern
Yeah.
thing. I don't know. Now, are you from Las Vegas originally?
Yeah, I am. But my grandmother was from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I think that's how you say it.
Yeah.
So sometimes when I was younger, certain things I did not know until I started school. Like I never said toilet, I always said commode, that kind
Right.
of thing.
Right.
And teachers would look at me like, "Where are you from?" Like, I'm here, but I've been in the house with this old lady for 5 years, you know?
Now, when did she move
So
from Tuscaloosa to Las Vegas?
oh, geez. Her and my grandfather, they built their home. I can't remember the year, but they migrated here. I can't remember what was going on. I had like an uncle that was lynched, and so they
Oh, wow.
migrated
Seriously?
here. Yeah, and then to California. And then one of my uncles, I never got a chance to meet him because he had passed away before I was born, but he was murdered too. So they knew where they were. It wasn't safe, so then that's when they moved here. My oldest auntie, she's like 70, and I think she was a little girl when they ended up moving.
Wow. Wow. So we're talking 50s, 60s. Yeah,
Mhm.
I can imagine what little I know of Alabama. If you're gay or a person of color, that's not the fucking state you want to be in.
Yeah, yeah. They like left in the middle of the night, from my understanding.
Seriously? They had
Yeah.
to kind of sneak out?
Yeah. Hmm.
Wow. I had a situation like that when I lived in Arizona briefly. Um,
Yeah.
I worked at a radio station and I was dating this little Hispanic girl,
Hmm.
cute girl. And I was getting ready to leave, and my boss, who was a Mormon, called me in and he says, "Are you dating this girl?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "You shouldn't be doing that." And now Mormons are known for being a little racist. I go,
Yeah.
"Don't even talk to me about that racist shit." And he said, "No, that's not what I'm concerned about." And I said, "What are you concerned about?" He goes, "Have you ever heard of the Mexican mafia?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, it's real and it's here, and her dad is one of the leaders of it. So if you break up with her and do something
Oh,
weird and
wow.
she's upset, I'm worried about you. I don't want to have to call your mom and tell her that they found you in the desert. So you're leaving now. Let's not announce it on the air. Just fucking go in the morning. And then I'll announce it after you're gone." I go, "Wow. I never experienced that in Minnesota." So I got the fuck out of Dodge, went to Colorado, stayed with a friend for a little bit, and then went home. It
Yeah.
was, it was,
That's crazy.
that's a little crazy. That's a little crazy. And I don't know how true it was or if anything would have happened, but he told me some stories that made me concerned. I'm 19, 20 years old. I'm going, yeah, fuck yeah, I'll get in my Vega and go.
That's the difference. Like now we can just kind of meet someone and then you can check out their social media page, see who's following them, get a feel of who their family is, that type of stuff. But back then you just kind of had to, trust somebody until they gave you a reason not to, which is pretty dangerous when you think about it.
Well, you're single, right? Old soul?
Yeah. Well, I
Uh,
do talk to somebody, but it's not as
yeah.
difficult.
Well, no, what I was getting at it was that you're a woman as a child, and am I right about that? You have a child, right?
Yeah, Miss Wannabe FBI. But she working on it though, so.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah, I keep looking at you thinking so young, and you told me your daughter's 24. I'm going, fuck. How
Yeah,
does
I was
this girl?
17 when I had her.
How does this girl have a daughter that's 24? Anyway, um, so you're in Las Vegas.
Mhm.
Um, you're early 40s. Um, are you out on the apps and dating and all that kind of stuff? I wouldn't want to fucking do that.
No, I'm not even on social media.
Really?
YouTube is my social media. So I'm not on like Instagram, TikTok, IG, none of that stuff. I see posts and different things from different like articles and stuff that I follow. But for me, social media is not mentally healthy.
It's a little
There's so
toxic.
Yeah, it's too toxic for me. I don't have the stomach for it. So I just kind of stay with what I can deal with and then just leave everything else alone. I
So
get
you
emotional sometimes looking at comment sections. So
really? Well, so you found the Rational Boomer podcast, the video version of the podcast by way of YouTube, not TikTok, not any other way.
nope, just
Wow.
YouTube. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
cool. That's cool. I know, I
yeah.
know, I know my wife will look at some of the comments I get on TikTok, and some on YouTube and such, and she'll get upset. She goes, and it's rare. I don't get that many mean comments, but she'll get upset. Doesn't that bug you? Not
Yeah.
really. That doesn't fucking bug me at all. I mean, when you do what I do, there's going to be people that hate you, and as long as they're listening, I don't give a shit.
It's
Uh,
pretty brave to put yourself out there like that in the current
Brave or
political
stupid.
climate. It's pretty brave. The political climate is very toxic. It was toxic before then, but I think it's pretty brave to do so.
Well, like I've always said, I'm one of the few people that truly have their First Amendment right because everybody works for somebody or family members will put pressure on you. I don't work
Yeah.
for anybody. I don't belong to any organizations that might give me shit. My family knows better than to tell me what I can and can't do because they know I'm going to do it anyway. But more importantly, the reason I do it is because I feel comfortable doing it and I know I'm right.
Yeah.
and as far as what side of history I'm on. So
Hmm.
I feel emboldened by that. I am right. And I know ultimately I'll those of us that think the way we do will end up the winners, and the people who are not our friends will end up fading away and dying,
Yeah.
theoretically.
History
So
has always taught us that, you know, and you just have to learn from it. And then you also have to have faith in it too. So even
yeah.
though on those days when it's like rough and you like, oh my God, this can't get any worse, you just be like, okay, yeah, but there was rough parts in the past too, and they were able to get through it, so we can as well. And I feel more confident with the side that I'm on because not only is it right, um, but it's kind of like intelligence and strategy against
Stupid.
stupidity,
Yeah.
nonsense, and noise, you know? So that's definitely a leg up. So I feel pretty confident. I have those days though where it doesn't feel like that, but
I mean,
try today, get up
you
tomorrow, and keep going.
you don't do social media, but here you are on the podcast. There's that young face and the words you speak. Are you worried about any backlash because of that?
No, not really. And if your community was more toxic, then I wouldn't.
Yeah,
But
no, I
it's
get it.
really not. I've seen some pretty toxic comment sections. So it says a lot when I feel safe somewhere. So I feel safe here. I don't worry about it at all.
Yeah, I'm fortunate with TikTok and Instagram and this that most people are in agreement with what I'm talking about. And I have
Hmm.
this family member who doesn't like the idea or thinks it's silly what I'm doing. And they go, I don't watch that stuff. But of course, they'll come back to me and they come back to me and they go, I don't get it. These people on TikTok fucking love you. And I said, because I'm saying what they're thinking. But that
Yeah,
seems surprising to her that people will resonate with somebody saying something that's, kind of aggressive. But it's aggressive, but it's true. So I feel comfortable in speaking the truth to the best of my ability and not worrying about backlash because I really don't care about the backlash. It's
yeah.
weird.
Not only that, but when you water stuff down, it takes away the realness of it, the
Yeah,
urgency of it, like
right.
if you know that this is an existential threat and you know how dangerous these people are, you're motivated to go vote and do everything that we can do within our power. We didn't feel that threat in 2016. We
No,
didn't, we're so naive to how bad can it be. We had bad presidents before. We didn't feel that danger, we didn't feel that threat, but now we feel it. And when you water it down, it takes away from that feeling, and you have to keep that feeling going in order to push people to do what it is that they need to do. So I think that's what's important about being blunt and raw, is because that's the truth and you have to hear it as the truth. That way you can do what it is that you need to do. But if people don't feel that danger, they're going to stay home. They're not going to vote, and I don't take issue with people who water it down. I just wish that they wouldn't
well,
water it down so much.
it's almost pointless. It's just talking for the sake of talking,
Hmm.
and people ask me all the time, mostly people I know, they go, "Do you think you're doing any good? You don't even have that many Trumplefux listening to you." And I said, my point isn't to talk down Trumplefux because you can't. They won't listen to
Right.
reason or logic. The only thing I can hope to do is pull together people of a like mind and feel like they have some power because they've got other people that think the same way they do, and maybe give them some confidence to go out and speak too. This is, I nobody knows how much good they're doing, but at least we're doing something. And if we can get other people more knowledgeable or better informed and get them talking, hopefully they'll talk to more people. It's a shot in the dark, but you got to do something.
Well, not only that, but even if you don't feel comfortable talking to someone, you can share a video.
Yeah.
And especially like with your clips, because they're so like boom, straight to the point. Sometimes people lose interest in like 30, 40 seconds from my understanding.
Oh
So if
yeah.
I have a friend of mine, he hasn't voted in like forever. And I sent him like a couple of clips of your video, and he would like really, is it that bad? And I'm like, you better go ahead and look it up. And he would like look it up. He'd be like, oh, these people is crazy. So the next thing I'm like, hey, did you get your registration card? So it kind of like it helps when I'm somebody, he knows that I'm passionate and he knows that I'm like, you need to vote, versus
Right.
if he hears somebody else saying it, it's really quick, it's in a clip. Not only that, but you're kind of like funny, so they'll be laughing at stuff. So it's like when you share those videos, like even if it's something I can't say, they're still getting a message, but they're getting it through you. So it is important. And like it's important for people to hear the message.
It's funny. On TikTok, I have a lot of followers that are people of color, and
Hmm.
I've got young black kids calling me uncle,
Yeah.
and um and one creator who's fairly popular, and she saw something I did, and she goes, this is my TikTok dad. And I go, that's cool, man. You're talking the right thing. But one of the greatest compliments I got from a person of color was that, I get a lot of heat about swearing from some people. Most people like it, and it doesn't matter because it's just the way I talk. But
Hmm.
one young black man um, said to me, "You know what I like about you?" I go, "What's that?" He goes, "You swear like a brother." And I said, "God damn it, I like that. I like that." Um,
My grandmother would say you cuss like a sailor.
yeah, I cuss like a sailor. But then I had, one um, young man of color. He would always uh, make a comment in my comments on my TikToks, and he would always say the same thing, and I didn't know how to react to it. He always go, "Good point, hot daddy." Oh, well, whatever, whatever. I guess I take that as a compliment, but it's just fun
It
to do.
is. It
I get to
is
meet a
because
lot of
some
people.
things, yeah, some things that you can say, a black guy your age could not get
Right,
away with saying that.
right.
So it's refreshing to like hear somebody saying what you want to say the way that you want to say it. You know what I mean? So I'm
I,
pretty sure there's a lot of love in the comment sections on TikTok.
well, I think of myself as kind of the Elvis of talking shit. I, I'm I'm co-opting the black community's voice and making it more palatable for the dumb white people.
You would fit in a barbershop out here, I'm telling you.
Oh, I would love that. I mean, I love just talking and bullshit and stuff, and that whole barbershop
Yeah.
situation. White people don't have that. You
No,
know,
you don't go to the
oh
barbershop and just shoot the breeze.
Oh, fuck no. I walk into a Great Clips because, my hair doesn't require a lot of attention. I went into this Great Clips one time, and this woman starts talking to me, and they look at me and they go, "I know who this fucker is. He's a Trump pumper. He's a white supremacist." And she starts talking about Trump and talking up Trump to me while I'm getting my hair cut. I said, "Honey, you don't want to talk that shit to me because this will not go well. You work here. I don't. I'll say whatever the fuck oh, you don't like Trump?" I go, "No." And nobody with any intelligence does either.
Oh,
And
wow.
and she and she was kind of put back on her heels. She finished the haircut and got me the fuck out the door. But no, we don't have any of that kind of community in barbershops, old white people sit
My
there.
No, my brothers, they go to the barbershop. They go to barbershops for hours. Like they'll go get their hair cut and then they'll like sit down and they're like talking. Like they'll go in and they'll get their hair cut, they'll sit down, they'll keep talking about whatever the subject is, and then they'll leave. So nobody's going to the barbershop for like 20, 30 minutes. You're in there for a couple hours. You talking politics,
I
talking
would
about
love that.
women, all that stuff. Yeah, I think it's just a play. We do the same thing in a beauty shop, so I can't.
It it
We
it
we've been there for 2 hours doing the same thing.
it's a social event, and
Yeah.
it's funny. Um I worked in black music in Minnesota for a while, which is ridiculous, but it was interesting. And these guys would go and get their hair cut once a week. I go, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Yeah.
I get my hair cut maybe once a month. You're going in there every week. They're going to get their hair cut. They're just going to
Yeah.
commune with people of their community. And I think that's great. I
Yeah, they just say,
wish we had that.
we're just gonna go shoot the breeze. That's it. Same thing when they go play basketball. They don't play basketball for a minute and then they just sit there in the grass, talk, whatever. Sometimes you need advice, whether it's kids and, different things that's going on. You just kind of bounce ideas off of each other. And it's better when you're like doing it in person versus online.
Back in the 60s, old white men, well, they were old at the time, but white men, and I'm sure black men too, but where I lived, it was mostly white. There was a similar situation, but it was back in the days where you could burn your trash, and
Mm.
everybody had big 64-gallon drum sitting in the back. They filled it with garbage and they burned it all the same time. So you had all these guys back there burning their garbage, standing there talking about shit about their cars and whatever. And all the little kids got sticks poking it in the fire. And that's about the closest thing we had to a barber shop. Everything else was just kind of, yeah, I don't want to talk to you. Most people go into a barber shop, white guys just go, I want to get in, get the fuck out, and go. And because you don't want to
You
talk to
know,
some of these.
you know what I always thought? And I could be wrong, but I always thought like our barbershop moments with our guys were like you ever seen like King of the Hill where they're like standing in the in
Yeah.
the alley like hanging out? I really did think like they were going like into the alley having a couple drinks, hanging out, that type of thing. I just always assumed that you hung out and, chopped it up with your friends and stuff. You just did it in a different way. That's what I
Well,
always thought.
yeah, well, that did happen. Like I say, with the garbage cans and the burning the garbage, that was kind of that scene. But now
Mhm.
that you can't do that anymore, and I mean, at this point, I have a condo here and in Savannah. I don't see my neighbors much. I don't even know who my neighbors are in a lot of ways. The people that are directly around me, I know who they are, but I don't see them much. There's not that community. There's not that communication going on. And I think that's what this country is missing. We got to be able to relate to other people. I mean, I was sitting with a guy that lives across the hall from me. He's an older guy. He's about 70 years old. And I sit down and talk to him. Nice guy. We're just talking about shit. And when we get on some hint of politics, I'm going, oh, fuck. What should I say? If I speak my mind and he's opposite, he lives across the hall from me. I bet when I'm out in the wild, as it were, I don't really talk about politics until somebody shoves it in my face and then the floodgates open. But I have to be careful about that because a lot of people my age don't think like me.
It's okay to disagree though. Like if
It's okay
we
with me, but it's not okay
yeah,
with them. That usually what happens is they'll get all hyped up and talking shit, and I'll just stay calm like I do. And when I hit them with a fact,
yeah.
uh, and they can't answer it, they go, "Well, I don't need to stand here and have you go crazy and yell at me." I go, "I wasn't yelling. I didn't yell once. I just asked you to address a fact, and it's difficult for you. So now you're mad and you have to have an excuse as if I'm out of hand. And I'm not. I'm just saying, really, you think that? Well, what about this? And it's tougher for me these days, especially with people my age, because I don't know what the fuck they're thinking.
Yeah, that's so odd to me.
It's
Because like if
odd.
we yeah, like if we get together at the park and, they're talking politics or something and, they not everyone's gonna agree. But if the conversation gets too heated, you'll have like someone's aunt or grandma or sister or somebody be like, hey, cut that out. It's enough. And
Yeah.
got heated. Now let's just move on.
Yeah. 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 I know what you're saying. Well, we're getting long here, but I enjoy talking to you and I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
good times.
Um,
Thank you.
um, feel free to come back anytime. I know as much as I want you back, everybody else out there listening wants you back even more. Probably not more, but it's always a pleasure to talk to you. In this world, um, it's a benefit to actually talk to somebody intelligent, because as we found out, there's a lot of stupid people out there. Fortunately, people
Unfortunately.
who listen to this are intelligent, so when I have them on the show, it always works out great. But it's a special pleasure to have you on, so anytime.
Thanks, I appreciate it. I appreciate the invite. It's more like venting. I feel like I know you. Sent you some pretty intimate emails, but yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
thank
so
you.
intimate, I read them on the podcast every time.
Yeah.
You know what? The one
Yeah,
thing is weird is you will send some longer longer emails, and they're all very compelling, so I have no problem reading them. But now I'm getting a lot more emails every day, which I like because I want them to be part of the show. But some
yeah,
of these emails, man, fuck, they're great, but I gotta
yeah,
read these motherfuckers, and I better be able to catch my breath now and again. But I really appreciate when people do participate. I think that's a big part of the success of any show, is when the audience can participate, and you're a
yeah.
perfect example of the value of that.
Thank you. I think people want to be heard.
Yeah,
And I think the people that we have in office that's supposed to be representing us, that's supposed to be our voice, they're not that. And I think that comes out a lot in the emails. I can hear from people in uh, the frustration that they have, and then
right.
some of the ones that are very historical and they talk about history, it's like they feel like people are forgetting that, you know?
Yeah,
And so I hear that a lot in the emails that you get, which is refreshing to know that there are people out there who do remember that and who know that. But at the same time, it's pretty sad because we don't have a voice right now because the
right.
people that are in positions to speak for us, they're not doing that.
They
So,
don't speak
uh,
for us, and they don't like us speaking either. That's why I
right.
do it. If it pisses them off, I'm all about doing it.
Hmm.
Anyway, old soul, thank you for coming by. I appreciate it immensely. As I said, anytime you want to come back, you're more than welcome. And just have what day is it? It's have a great weekend, because we're in the weekend now. But
You too. Thank you.
and keep doing the good work too. I'm impressed by how much you put yourself out there in that regard, and do as much good as you do for people who need the help.
Yeah, thanks. I'm not alone. There's plenty of people willing to help.
That's good. That's good. Well, thank you very much for those listening. Thank you for taking the time to listen. I hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.